Well, I think there are two answers to your question. You have to distinguish Americans from the elite class of globalists that currently rules us. Okay, so let's talk about Americans. Most Americans on any given day, if you walked up to them in Kansas City or Seattle, Washington, or Des Moines, Iowa, and you said, "What do you think about NATO?" And the average American would say, "What's that?" They're not engaged. Well, we have troops in Europe. Yeah, yeah, I know. And why are we in Europe? Well, it's 80 years since the Second World War, and we're still trying to keep the evil Russians from invading. The average American's going to look at you, what? You know, what are we doing there? I guess what I'm trying to get across is that the average American citizen is preeminently focused on what happens inside America. That's the great frustration now, not just with Donald Trump, but with Washington in general. People are saying, wait a minute, 70% of Americans are scraping by. They're living paycheck to paycheck. What are you doing about that? We listen to everybody say, well, we're bringing back jobs and industry. We're going to restore productivity. Okay. What have you done? Then the president steps up and says, well, I'm going to allow Saudi Arabia to bring in its own workers to establish, a corporate entity on American soil. But they don't want any American workers, so we're going to let them have H-1B visas. In other words, we're doing exactly the opposite of what Trump said he was going to do. Americans feel increasingly betrayed. It's not just Democrats, it's not just Republicans, it's the whole group. And increasingly, people are listening to Democrats and Republicans and saying, doesn't matter what we do, we end up with the same outcome. There's just not that much difference anymore, despite what they may claim. So that's one part of the answer. The other answer, I think, is look at what the elites are saying. This man, Witkoff, and I guess Kushner as his partner, neither of these men have been appointed officially to any position at all. I don't even know if they have clearances or they're even able to get clearances. And they're running around negotiating on behalf of President Trump, representing the American people in the United States government. Really? That doesn't make any sense. In other words, why have a cabinet? Why have the facade of a government if you're going to run this operation as though it's an extension of your family and your friends, the people that you've done business with, who ostensibly have rescued you historically from bankruptcy? Has it always been this way? No, not really. We've had tastes of it before. We've had short periods where this kind of thing obtained, but this is something that's very, very different. And then you have Witkoff advising the Russians, according to this latest transcript, which is circulating, about his discussions with Peskov in Moscow. This is how you cultivate Donald Trump. This is how you persuade him that he should do something, by telling him how great he is and that he is a wonderful leader and he's bringing peace and happiness and everything. I can hear the laughter from the Kremlin all the way here, and I'm outside of Washington, D.C. This is absurd. This doesn't make any sense. And then you listen to people on the Hill that are angry and say, well, if he's representing America, helping Putin come to an agreement with us is treason. Well, I'm not sure I would call it treason. It's depressing. But the point is that we've got a lot of very confused people. We have people who have decided that Russia is this permanent enemy of everything good, which we associate ourselves with. In other words, we're good, they're bad. Everything's black and white to people in the Hill. Why is it black and white? Well, my donors see it that way. That's what it comes down to. And the average American, what does the average American know about it? Nothing. George Kennan, when we were involved in Vietnam, tried to make the argument on more than one occasion that we shouldn't be in Southeast Asia and Vietnam because most Americans don't even know where it is. There's a lot of truth in that statement. I've come to the conclusion, if the average American voter cannot identify the place on the map, there's probably no reason for military presence in that area. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do business with everyone. You see, that's the original concept under Washington and the people that founded the country. They wanted to do business with everybody. They were never isolationists. That's a phony term. If you want to do business with everyone, you're not an isolationist. But then, thanks to FDR and the catastrophe of World War II, we were told if you're not everywhere militarily, you're an isolationist. Well, there's a very different formula. And I don't think we've sorted this out. So I guess we're just going to all sit on the sidelines and watch everything disintegrate. And I include Washington in that. This is not just the beginning of the end for NATO and EU. That's been underway for some time. That's going to happen. It's also the disintegration of things in Washington, D.C., because none of it rests on the foundation of rationality or national interest. Do we have a national interest in the destruction of Iran? No. Do we have a national interest in the destruction of Venezuela? No. What are we doing? And Americans, when things get worse economically, when our position financially deteriorates further, these questions are going to come up. And the people that have provided the old lies as answers are going to go under. So I go back to where we started. The empire of lies constructed by Washington and its globalist allies in Western Europe is crumbling. It is not crumbling fast enough for my taste, but it's crumbling.